Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, I'm super excited about our show today because we have my mentor in healing, Sue Maes, the one and only. Sue Maes is a life coach, and you can find out more about Sue Maes and her wonderful work at her website, SueMaesLifeCoach.com. Welcome, Sue Maes.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So everybody, I have to tell you more about Sue Maes so you understand how special this time that we're talking to you about is. Sue Maes is an industry leader in the holistic field and an international teacher and facilitator. She has over 30 years of learning and has developed a specialized internship that we're going to be talking about to you today. And she has more certifications than we can even count. She's an ordained minister, a master's of metaphysical science. She is also a medical intuitive and trained in quantum healing. She's a professional kinesiology provider and also trained in total body modification, TBM, environmental stress management, touch for health. She's a nutritional consultant, live cell analysis and bioimpedance, energetic transformation and energetic healings. She's trained in vibration and breath work. She is a shiatsu therapist. She's also trained in brain gym, and that's how I first met Sue Maes, at a brain gym convention, educational kinesiology, and in natural vision improvement, which is how she started on her journey. She is highly trained in healing for people with ADD, ADHD, and every kind of brain disorder you could name. And she's also trained in neurofeedback. So she has taught in Paris, she has taught all over the world, and we're really super excited to have her on the show. And again, she is my mentor. So, and I have to say this because I graduated from Brown University. I was Phi Beta Kappa. I'm the author of 10 books, and Sue is my mentor. So Sue is somebody that I have looked up to for decades. So we are here today to talk to you about her healing internship. Now, why I'm hosting her internship in Atlanta. I have done her internship, her basic internship, not just once, but 4 times. So I'm going to start by talking about why I'm hosting Sue Maes. I'm 64 years old. Sue is 70. We know lots of people who teach so-called healing, and people spend tens of thousands of dollars and never really learn that much. They never receive a lot of their own personal healing, and then they come away confused and are not able to actually make a living as a professional healer.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have to say that it is because of Sue that I've been able to make a 6-figure annual income for decades. So this is the work that I love to do, and it has supported me and my loved ones for years. So Sue Maes, what is the healing internship you're planning to teach in the fall of 2023?
The self-empowerment internship, where they learn how to put different modalities together so that they can find the priority with themselves or with others, so they can get into their healing modalities within themselves and allow the innate intelligence to take over and help them.
So what are the dates of the internship? I believe it's a 4-week internship.
Yes, it's 4 weeks, and we're going to start in the week of October 16th. So if they want to contact you or myself, they're we'll be more than happy to share all the other details and all the other weeks.
So
again, my email address is Catherine with a C at CatherineCarrigan.com, and my last name is CARRIGAN.com. So if you're interested in joining us, email Catherine at CatherineCarrigan.com. And Sue Maes, will you give everyone your email address?
SueMaes.coach@gmail.com.
Sue Maes.
And Maes is MAES.
Sue Maes.
.coach.
.coach@gmail.com.
Yes.
And what is the cost of this 4-week internship?
The 4 weeks is a $10,000 commitment for people, but they will come away with being able to, have a practice if they decide, or at least the beginning levels of the practice, right? There's more to come after that. That's the beginning levels.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to learn. But, but what I've seen, having done your internship, not just once, but 4 times, I've seen you take people who knew really almost nothing about natural healing, and they've been able to come away and actually establish a personal practice where they could make a living as a healer.
That's exactly what I like to do, because I've been to lots of courses over the 30 years of learning, and people take the courses and they come away and they don't know how to make it work, and they don't know how to put it into practice. And that's my forte. That's what I love to do.
Yeah, and I would say, Sue Maes, that you and I are both very practical people, right?
Yes.
We both solve actual problems for actual humans.
Yes.
And what I see is there's so many people who are interested in natural healing and they want to have a business in it. And they go around and maybe spend a fortune taking courses, but they still don't know how to put it together. And that's what you do.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I love to do. That's where I get excited.
Yes, you're off the chart as a healer, but you're even more off the chart as a teacher.
Thank you.
So Sue Maes, what is your healing internship about? What do people actually learn over the course of 4 weeks?
Well, I put together lots of different modalities that cover the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and our spiritual connection. And all the things that we're going to be learning are hands-on. It's an actual technique. You're going to learn it. You're going to be able to practice it, and then you're going to be able to follow through. And if you have any questions, then they all get answered at the same time. One of the things I love about teaching is that, when you have questions, when you're in some situations, they don't want you to do the questions. And I love the questions because that stimulates me to tell you more, and you actually learn more. The more questions we have, the better it is.
Yes. And I also want to add, you're also teaching people about the energy body and energetic healing. So, right. Yes. So you teach what I refer to as the 5 levels of healing: the physical body, the energy body, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual.
And how they get connected.
How they get connected. And I think this is why your work is so profound and so actually effective, because what I see, I have 30 years experience in natural healing, thanks to you, making a great living. And sometimes people are working really hard on one level, like they're working on their physical body, but they have neglected what's going on, or they are not able to pinpoint or resolve the issues on the other levels, the energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And what you teach us is you set a goal, like to get rid of my back pain, for example. You find the emotion or emotions that are causing this issue to occur. You find the age or ages at which this pattern started, and you discover all other relevant information. And then you ask at the soul level, what will clear this issue? And
yes, and I think the biggest piece is not only what will clear this issue, I think that they don't have to redo or relive whether it was terror or stress or post-traumatic stress or anything at that deep level. They don't have to relive any of that. We're just walking through it step by step. Yes, there will be tears. One thing I can guarantee, there's always tears, but not tears of sobbing and despair, tears of, wow, you actually found out what it is. So they can shift and they can reprogram how their system works. So they're not going back to that same spot anymore, which makes a huge difference in their day-to-day life.
This is so profound. Now, Sue Maes, I know that sometimes people come to your internship for their own personal healing, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
there's somebody in their family who's not well and they want to help them. And yet there's also people who want to become professional healers. What kind of people should be taking this course?
Well, I think it's a combination. If they're looking to be maybe they're already a healer and they want more information, they're going to learn practical ways to really help. The people that are coming for just themselves, they're still going to get worked on every day. That's part of this course. You're going to be participating and be worked on too. And so they go home with a really good perspective of where they started and where they ended, and they can actually see and feel the difference after the 4 weeks. And it's not just processing for the 4 weeks. They're going to be processing for a while in between, because you're getting rid of layers and layers, whether it's on whatever body or whether it's just cleaning out your aura of all that stuff that kind of just sits there and aggravates you.
Well, I'm excited to host you because every time I do your internship, I make a massive leap forward in my own life. So it's quite profound. And for our audience, I'll tell you, having done this so many times, what it's like to study with Sue, because Sue will teach a technique and usually she'll demonstrate it on someone. And then it'll be like, I work on somebody and they work on me. So you're not just learning about something, you actually see the technique demonstrated, and then you practice on each other. And then Sue goes around and it's like, Catherine, your hands are in the wrong place. And or you're doing it backwards or what have you. And then she makes sure that you're doing the technique correctly. So you learn how to do it and you actually receive the healing. So you know what it feels like. So,
which is really important for them for when they're in a practice, because if you haven't cleaned up your own stuff as a practitioner, let me tell you, it will walk through your door and you will be dealing with your own stuff by the end of the day. And that's not always comfortable, right? You don't want to be bringing up your own stuff. And that's the idea behind this internship, is that you've cleared all of that up for yourself. And when you've done that, then you're more grounded, you're more solid, and you're more present. And that's what people need from us when they come to us. They need our present part so that they can see that, oh, I too can maybe feel this way. And it's a possibility. And that's really what we want to get to, is there's lots of possibilities that your life can change dramatically.
yes. And again, having done your internship 4 times, I have to tell everyone this story. So I remember the first time I did Sue's internship, which was a long time ago.
Yes.
I'd already done decades of personal healing. I'd taken supplements, I did yoga, I was doing all this wonderful work, but I was still so sick. I had to lie down every day at lunch for an hour. And I remember Sue gave me a huge compliment to me once. She said that I am the sickest client you've ever worked with.
Yes.
And yet,
but even through that, you still healed a lot of pieces and you still got benefit and you came out on the other side. And the next time you took it, you were able to integrate more. And I think that's the key too, that, I'm not going anywhere. At least I don't think I am. So, I'm open to teaching people, but I've always been there in their back pocket. If they need help and can't understand something, I get calls all the time from practitioners that I've taught, and they'll say, I'm stumped. And it's like, okay, let's walk through this and I can help them figure it out. And that's the support you need when you're trying to establish a practice, I believe.
Yeah, so what you're saying is once people take your internship, if they have a challenging client, then they can call you up and go, what do I do?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
that hasn't ended over all these years.
yeah. And I'm always so thankful to have someone else to share and to get some insight about. But
Yes.
again, so I went from being Sue's sickest client ever, which is saying a lot because you work with people, severe head injury, severe car wrecks. And now I'm 64 years old. I'm on 0 drugs of any kind. And I'm happy and healthy and making a great living, which again is what I want. I want other people doing your work. And
Yes.
Sue Maes is now semi-retired. She's not taking any other clients, but I have talked her into doing her internship. So come and take advantage of this. This is profound information. So with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. We'll be right back with life coach Sue Maes. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. Sue Maes, life coach. You're going to be teaching your healing internship here in Atlanta beginning in the fall of 2023. When people are finished with their internship, what will they be able to do professionally speaking?
Well, professionally, they should be able to open a office or a space within their home to promote healing, different types of healings that they can do. And they should be able to, start with family and friends. That's what I always tell people. After you get good, you don't, when you, you'll progress from that. And really you get a practice going by word of mouth, by the good things that you do, the good things that you make a change with. That's when they tell their best friend, this person helped me with that. And they're going to start sending you people with the same thing that they had for a long time. I had a client not too long ago that I hadn't seen in about 20 years. And she met me at a golf tournament and said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. Can I come in for a tune-up? Can I come back?" And it was quite cute because, they get to get, like I said before, that physical healing, and they understand what that is. The biggest thing is they get to understand the integration of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and they know what that feels like in their body. They know how to get grounded and how that perception changes with incoming stressors. And we want all those incoming stressors to be able to be removed, right? And I think the biggest thing for people starting is they never think that they could make 6 figures. And I need to be able to tell you that almost everybody or 90% of the people that have taken my course were able to make that within a first year of working, just because there's a great need. And there are other practices out there that do long-term talking therapy and stuff. And some people just can't even talk about what's going on. And that's the wonderful part about this work, even if they can't verbally explain.
Sorry, their audio went out there for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So even the people, that are stuck, they start to be able to see and feel that difference. And that's what we want to be able to promote, right? That somebody heard about you and it starts to be a word of mouth only. And that's really what you want, because the word of mouth, you're not spending a lot of money on infomercials or whatever. It's like people start to say, "I've heard your name. I want to come and I want to get better." And you're making people better. And that's really what the program's about. I'm, like I said, at 70, my goal is to make sure this work continues, because it's such a great gift to the people.
Yes, and for myself, I work out of my house. I've
Yep.
only worked out of my house for the past 30 years, and I help people literally all over the world using the
Yes.
work that I have learned from Sue.
Yes.
And there is a lot to learn. There's more to learn from Sue, but this is the basic internship that you really need to not only get your own self sorted, but also to be able to understand and be able to read what is going on with other people and what will work to make them better.
And
So,
really finding the priority for them, right? What's the priority to make this better? Because sometimes it's not talking, sometimes it's something that goes in, just is stuck in their energy field. And we need to just be able to get that out so that they can be okay. And so it's not always just so simple as finding an emotion and saying, okay, let's get rid of that emotion. If it's got the priority somewhere else, we've got to take care of that first. And it's layers, right? We layer information. People used to say, you know, it's like peeling an onion, but, you know, I think we want to get to the heart. We want to get back to the heart. Remember, the heart developed first in utero, then the brain. So we want to always bring it back to the heart and how much love and care and joy they can have.
yes, and I love that 90% of your students have been able to earn a six-figure income after learning your work in the first year.
Yes, it's fun
Yeah,
for them too.
yes, for you. Now, who inspired you in your career?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say my late husband, John Thyrat, did, because he introduced me to kinesiology in the late 70s. And so it was pretty out there at that time, right? There was no scientific proof or anything like that. And then through him, I met all the founding members and fathers of a lot of things. Dr. George Goodhart, who started applied kinesiology. I got to study with Glenn Doman in Philadelphia, and he has the Center Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential, and they work with brain injured from all over the world. I was privileged to meet him and see his center, and I got invited back to learn all his courses, which was really good. Paul Dennison, the founder of Brain Gym, or educational kinesiology. Dr. Victor Franks, the founder of Total Body Modification and Environmental Stress. Bruce Dew, the person who helped with professional kinesiology. We've done medical intuitive work, and I had spiritual classes at my home for 14 years every week. So there's so many other things with meditation and spiritual work that it really started to grow in a different way. And that's when I started to study the metaphysical science to really see what was going on behind it. And now all of the work that, you know, Touch for Health, all of the different levels of kinesiology, they've got scientific proof of how and why it works. But when we started, it didn't. There wasn't that. It was just trusting and seeing the results. I think that's the key for me. It was always about seeing the results so quickly right in front of you, and the joy of that, right? And the change in people. It was amazing. My goal is to keep learning. It's so fascinating to me. And then when I learn something new, I try and figure out how to put it into my internships because everybody needs to know it.
Right. And when you get really good at solving people's problems, like you said, Sue, they tell all your friends.
Yes.
All their friends. So,
yes.
You know, I did a couple sessions earlier this year with this lady in Europe who is a medical intuitive, and she was trained by somebody. And I went to her teacher's website, and the website was like, my clients are millionaires. And I talked to the lady who happened to be in Holland. I said, I'm a millionaire. And I got that way by myself as a single woman doing Sue Maes's work. And I have clients who are billionaires.
Yes.
So again, it's, you know, when you really solve problems, people will come to you. Now, how long have you been teaching your internship, Sue Maes?
Well, I started in 1990, so a long time ago. And how I started, I had no intention of being a teacher. I just loved the work and started working and had clients. And I had two people here in London who were trying hard to start a practice and weren't having much luck. And so they said to me, what if I come and sat in your office and watched you work? And I said, well, that would be up to my clients if they agree. And so that's how I started. I had two women that came in and sat in my office and watched me for 120 hours they did with me. And in that time, they would watch me work on the client and they didn't talk all day. And then at the last hour of the day, I spent answering questions like they wanted to know how my brain went from one spot to the other. How did I get there? And it was through kinesiology. So then the next group said, I need some notes. I'll never remember all this. And so that's how now I've created those 4 really thick manuals on with precise details so that somebody can leave. And if they can't figure it out, the manuals can help them. If they go back to their manuals, usually you can find the procedure and figure it out.
Right.
But I started that long ago, and it just grew through people hearing, again, by word of mouth, hearing that I was teaching. And I got to teach at the Polarity School in Toronto. There was a lot of women there and men that were graduating with their Polarity. And I went and taught there and to a whole class of about 30 people. And that was, that's 30 people just keeps multiplying out. So, but I don't want classes that big. That's not my goal to have classes that big. I much prefer smaller classes. I like classes not more than 10. And the reason is I want them to be intimate. I want them to be able to learn, and I want them to have hands-on, and I want to be able to support each person that's learning it to the best of my ability. And so that we can really, they can really walk away with, I've got that. I know that. I can do that.
Yeah. And for our audience, I'll say, again, I was Phi Beta Kappa at Brown University, an Ivy League university. I have a very curious mind. And I run this radio show, the Natural Healing Show, because I love talking to the top healers all over the world. I had been all over the world studying natural healing. And there's so many times I go someplace and I just like roll my eyes and think, God, I should just be studying with Sue. This is such a waste of time and money. I did a program a couple of years ago. It was all online. And the teacher would, it was a talking head. It was on video. And the teacher would talk for 1.5 to 2 hours all by herself. It was really hard to stay awake. And then you would get spun off into these Zoom rooms with 2 or 3 other people. And it'd be like, what do I do? I learned absolutely zip. So again, Sue, it's the self-empowerment technology. And that is actually what you do, is you empower other people, right? Now,
and that's my goal.
Yeah, so you've been teaching your internship for 33 years.
Yes.
Now, so I know that the internship, the basic internship, you teach different things in each of the 4 weeks. What do you teach in the first week? What do you teach in the second? What do you teach in the third? What do you teach in the fourth?
So the first week is basically stuff about how the brain functions and how to turn on the brain, how to get the brain at its optimal level, whether, depends if somebody has a brain injury or if they're, or just, we're looking at on the spectrum of somebody and what that would look like. And then techniques to change the brain, actually change the brain, and things that they can do, and they can go home and work on those with their loved ones and start to see changes. This second week is really all about the emotional component. How do we get all those emotions in order so that people aren't fluctuating and always have ups and downs? Our emotions should be nice and calm, and we should be able to be pretty stable and grounded. And that's what you want to be if you're going to be a practitioner. You can get to that level very easily in a week of emotional work from 9 in the morning till in the afternoon, right? So it's that. Then we work on the mental capacity, how the brain and belief systems get put into us and organized in our brain in a fashion that sometimes doesn't serve us. So for an example, when we're a kid, our parents said, don't cross the road. It's really dangerous, right? That's a really good belief system, but it's not good for us as an adult. I need to cross the road, right? So we have things in our brain already programmed that don't suit us, don't suit who we desire to be, but maybe it was programmed in by our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, all of those different people that influence us on a day-to-day basis, right? Then the last week is a lot of the physical and the energy work, like the energetic healing stuff to get some of the healing started. And then it goes into later with other courses. I teach soul work, like spiritual work, and how to get that part of you open without it being religious, without it being any of that, going back to just the soul of who I am. So the weeks are packed. You will be busy. You won't have a lot of breaks. I like to continue to teach. I have to be told by my students usually to give them a break because there's so much to learn and there's so much to be covered, and I want them to go home with as much as they can handle.
Right. So rather than, just learning one technique like Reiki, for example, or Psyche, for example,
Yeah.
or, name it, for example, what Sue has done is she's put together literally all of the healing techniques that she has learned in her 4 decades of personal practice. You've been doing healing work for 40 years, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So 40 years of healing, bottom line, she teaches you everything you know, everything she knows, right?
That's what I try to do. Yeah. And I think some of those other techniques are really good. I don't want anybody to say, I'm putting any of those down. The techniques that you've learned are perfect. But what we want to do is learn how to put it into your toolbox, that you know how to get access to it with every client that you need it for. But you don't need the same toolbox for every client. It's kind of like if I go to fix something, sometimes I need a hammer, sometimes I need a screwdriver, right? You've got to know which piece to be using with each person. And that's the fun and the joy of it. When you've got a big menu of things to do from your toolbox, then it makes it much easier to find something that suits exactly to what the client needs.
And in my humble opinion, it's very generous of Sue to teach you everything she knows, including how to run a successful healing business. And again, selfishly, I'm hosting you because I want more people doing this work, right?
Yes, I do too. That's really the goal of semi-retiring, so that I could teach more and get more people doing the work. There are so many people, especially since COVID, in high anxiety and high stress that absolutely need somebody to help support them. And there aren't enough of us. When I started in this work, there was 11 of us as females in the province of Ontario. I'm the one left.
Yeah.
I'm it, because everybody else is retired or whatever. I'm choosing not to do that. I find that when you're actively working with clients, you keep learning, right? And when you get stuck, I love that part. I remember one client coming to me years ago, and we were stuck. We couldn't go any further, and I couldn't find the answer. And I went and studied with Glenn Doman, and her child was not speaking, and she was about 7. And I went to this course there, and I came home and I called that mother up and I said, I know the answer. Come on back in, right? Now we can help you. And that's what you want. You don't forget the people that you didn't do or get to the end with, or get to how far you want it. Those ones stick inside and make you learn and want to learn. It's like, what would be the answer to that? Right. And I think that's what's always driven me to keep learning. And I'm thrilled learning. And when I learn something new, I teach people what I learned.
Yeah. And again, from a selfish point of view, having studied with Sue, and done her internship
Yep.
4 times. I'm 64. I love what I do. Every day of my job is so incredibly rewarding. I mean, just this past week, I've been working with a little boy who had brain tumors, and his mother is like, this is the best he's felt in years, right?
Yes.
And so it's so incredibly rewarding at the soul level, and then also to be able to make a living. And I know that I'll be able to continue to do this work as long as I choose to do so. And it's going to make me healthier and happier and be able to continue to support myself financially. And that's
Right.
what I want for other people.
Exactly. Instead of going, I've been to courses, and you have too, where you find that people have been studying and studying, and they come away and they've studied a lot of different tools and techniques, but they're not making a living at it. They're starving, really, and they can't get it. And it's like, that's so sad, because they're putting themselves out there to learn, but they're not being taught enough to make it learn.
Yeah, I just had a session referred by a billionaire client, and this lady is a healer and a professional intuitive, and she was literally suicidal. And part of the issue is she couldn't make a living.
Yes.
So I want everyone to be able to make a living and have a system that will allow you to do that. Now, with that, let's take another break and listen to a commercial sponsor from one of our folks here at UK Health Radio. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author, and we're listening to my mentor, Sue Maes, life coach. Sue Maes, life coach, you teach your internship in person. Now, in this day and age, we've all gotten used to Zoom. You're in Canada, I'm in Atlanta. I work with people, clients all over the world. And even people have encouraged me to do online courses. But in my professional opinion, you can't learn healing, remotely, right?
I don't think so either. You can
Yeah.
learn the information about it, but you won't experience it.
Right. And you won't know what it feels like to receive it in your own body, and you won't really learn how to do it for other people. So, and again, and I'm super blunt in case anyone's not noticed. And, to me, those online trainings are just money grabs. It's like somebody's desperate for money. They can't make a living as a healer, so they have to create some online course that nobody really understands. Why do you think it is so critical for people to learn healing work in person rather than remotely?
Well, like I said before, I think if you don't do the hands-on and you don't have that experience within your own physical being of what that feels like, you can't speak to it at the level that that next client that walks in that needs it. You can say, when I experienced this, this is what I felt after. I had an interesting experience with children in my practice. When I first started, I was doing a lot of brain integration work. And if I worked with kids that were under 3, when you got finished or they got to a point where they couldn't integrate anymore, they literally would fall asleep on the table for 20 minutes with their arms spread out and their legs open. And when they're 20, and it was always 20 minutes. I don't know what 20 minutes is, but 20 minutes is pretty important somewhere in our being. And they would wake up and they would deny that they were sleeping. And they said, I was just resting and it feels better now. And that was, little kids could say that. So if they could, it really made me realize we really need to have these experiences within our being to be able to call them up, to be able to say, this is what it does. This is how it works. And this is what you're going to have the possibility of feeling afterwards. And sometimes people, I think in healing, you know, they come in for healing, and then as soon as they're finished, they jump in their car and they go get their groceries or they do stuff. And one of the things that I like to encourage people to do is, you know, maybe have a little rest after we're done. You know, if I'm doing it remotely, if I'm working on somebody remotely, I'll ask them, you know, maybe lay down for a half an hour or an hour. Give yourself permission to integrate the work. And too many people don't. And if you're not hands-on and you haven't experienced it in your own body, it's going to be very difficult because it's just a thought that this is how it happens, rather than speaking from your own heart and saying, I know. And that knowingness is what we really need to be able to express to others so that they can know that they're healing and they're getting a good change and a good shift.
Now, Sue Maes, your internship starts with teaching people how to identify 54 possible brain profiles, and then teaching people how to integrate the brain so that their brain, the practitioner's brain, and their client's brain can work better. Why do you think it's so important for people to learn how to heal the brain?
Well, the brain runs everything. And now with all the new scientific facts about neuroplasticity, it's exciting again, because when I first started in this work, they talked about brain dominance and hand dominance. And they said, none of that develops till they're 3. Now they know with the PET scans and all the scans they can do in the brain that those dominants are in utero. So if it's in utero, we want to optimize it when they're out here in the real world and make sure that we're functioning at 100% or maybe in the 90%, but not lower than that. We want our frontal lobes that do all the conscious thinking and all the important front lobe. Oh, that was just brain fart. Frontal lobes. They need to be able to be turned on so that you're not just being logical or being creative. You're being both of those. You need both of those. We want the front brain working. We don't want your unconscious always in control. And we sure as heck don't want your reptilian brain running you, which is only about, you know, keeping you breathing and keeping you alive. But it's a lot of times stays in fight or flight so long that we can't even get here to the frontal lobes and make a good decision. So if I don't start with the brain, my thought is, then how are they going to learn the rest? And how are they going to integrate it? And how are they going to keep it locked in there so they have access to it? So yes, I always start with the brain, and I always get the same conversations going, like, why do we have to learn about the brain? If you don't know yourself, and you surely won't know your clients, and you want to know how they're functioning, and those brain profiles are different than their dominances. So we have different profiles based on what we do, whether it be with money, whether it be with our friends, whether it be with how we eat, can be any one of those, any subject, right? We shift in how our dominance shows up, and we want to be able to keep those intact and know that I'm in control, that it's my brain isn't running a program. I'm in charge of what program it runs, and I want to make sure it's working correctly.
And, you know, as a personal testimonial, before I met Sue, and again, I went to Brown Ivy League College, the Phi Beta Kappa speech when I graduated, all right? So I had a wonderful education, but I was on lithium and antidepressants for 18 years. And on top of that, I experienced head injuries, physical abuse from my father and from my first husband. I can remember being hit in the head so hard that I woke up the next morning with my ears ringing. Okay. Yes. And Sue helped me to heal my brain. I've been off all psychiatric medication for 30 years. And, you know, people need to know that it's possible. So I think something like over 12% of US adults are on some form of psychiatric medication. Yes. And our children are very heavily medicated. The scientific research shows that Adderall and Ritalin increase your chances of Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
Okay, very scary, and mania. So if we can heal the brain naturally, you need to know that it's possible, and B, how to do it. It's critical, right?
And neuroplasticity now is proven that it works. Before, when we were doing it, they said, oh, well, I don't know why that works or how that works. But now we know because they can see it. And, when I first met you, I think a lot of people, when they're in that state, Catherine, are bypassed by whether the medical system or healers and say, well, that person's just, maybe they're not okay, maybe they're not right. And it's like, wow, but we can help them. You want to be able to get help. And those people want help more than the other people. And so it's like, being kind and generous and hopeful and grounded enough to be able to say, there is an answer for you. And that's really why I love this work and love that we can make that difference. And you're proof of that, not only your personal story, but your professional story, that you can make that money and you can have a good living and you can live with joy and have, be in a happy state a lot of the time and not have to fight off depression on a daily basis. Those are big tools, and we want to start there and really help people come to that conclusion that, what, this is part of who I want to be. And I want to learn that.
And again, I want that for other people.
Yes.
And I've published now 10 books, and I again, even my books, I know so many people, they did a book. Well, it's like, try doing 10 books. It's a lot of work, but I could never have written all those books if my brain wasn't integrated.
Right.
Right. So it's really, really critical. So I also want to point this out. So I'm currently working with a client in another country who's on hydrocodone and pregabalin. And the long-term use of these severe pain medications have affected her nervous system to where she's literally in constant pain. And she spent many, many years in talk therapy. But one of the things that I pointed out to her, for her, whenever she does talk therapy, and she was severely sexually abused as a child, it's really amazing she's still alive. When she does talk therapy, she literally calls up the cellular memories of the abuse, and she goes right back into that energy. And I'm like, you know what? You really actually need to be done with talk therapy. Yes. So my question for you, Sue, is that you call yourself a life coach, and many life coaches, they deal with things by chatting. Let's just talk about it. Why do you think, in your humble opinion, is talk therapy not the total answer for complete and total healing for people?
Well, the talk therapy works on the mental body only. It doesn't work on the physical. It doesn't work on your energetic. It doesn't work on your emotional. And it sure as heck doesn't usually include your spiritual. And if you don't have all of those integrated, then you're really part of a picture. You're walking around as a half being, and rather than, you know what, I have so much more to give, or I have so much more inside of me, and it feels trapped then. So talk therapy is a form of therapy that has worked for years and years, but I find that using kinesiology really shortens that and makes it better and faster. And you want to be able to have people that see a beginning, a middle, and an end. And they know that, you know what, I don't have to go and talk about it forever. Like you, I've had clients had sexual abuse, and I always tell them, I said, it's okay to go to that, but you have to graduate. Mm-hmm. You have to get out of that. You can't be in that energy all the time, or you don't energetically leave it behind. And that's the key. We want to be able to, leave those traumas and those things that really scarred us in the past. We're not saying they weren't traumatic. We're not saying they weren't important and part of who you are, but you don't want to stay there. You want to stay in the part of, I want to move towards joy. I want to move towards love. I want to have a happy heart, and I want to feel like I know who I am on the inside. And I don't have to be questioned from anybody. I really have got it. And that's why I like how I practice and how I teach people to practice, because we get to the root cause. It doesn't take as long. And we can find out, like you said, who it started with, how old you were, what it was all about in a very short period of time. I had a client that did talk therapy for 15 years, and I happened to be friends with the psychiatrist, and she said, could you please find out what this is about? And I worked with her for 20 minutes and figured it out and sent her back to her therapist, right? And she said to me, well, don't you want me for a client? I said, that's your decision, not mine. I said, your psychiatrist asked me to get this basic information for her, and that's what I did. Right? So that's why that's the difference.
So in conclusion, if you want to be healthier, do Sue's internship. If you want to have a very rewarding practice where you can be healthy and happy and really help people and support yourself and your family, do Sue's internship. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. Our wonderful guest today, my personal mentor, Sue Maes, life coach. And you can find out more about Sue Maes and her wonderful work at SueMaesLifeCoach.com. And Sue's not taking any more new clients. So if you want to learn, you've got to come to her internship. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.